Warning: some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to r/NoSleep. If you enjoy scary stories, subscribe and comment down below any stories you have. I found a disturbing yoga stream. If I stop watching, I can't save her. She called it yoga for one. I found her stream a month ago, during a rare confluence of self-disdain and spare time that collided into something resembling motivation. Tucked between the kickboxing classes and the home gym meatheads was her thumbnail. It caught my eye. It was a simple shot of her face, so near to the camera that I could count the freckles. Her teeth a little too large for her mouth and her nose ever so slightly crooked. I've never been the type of guy to consider yoga, but I tune in, and in a matter of seconds, I was entranced. The girl was in her living room, a haphazard mise-en-scene, the floor speckled with sad little plants and stacks of magazines. She posed with her hands on the floor and her hips thrust in the air. Her butt perched in the center of the screen. I decided to stay a while. I had no yoga mat, so I laid out a towel. It was difficult to follow along. She talked a lot, and only a fraction of it was about the routine. Press your heels together and bend your head to your feet, breathing deeply. My feet smell like peaches and cream today. Makes me want to gobble them up. I love summer peaches. I love biting into them and feeling the juice erupt in my mouth. It reminds me of the time when And I fell into the meditative quagmire woven by her words, inhaling the scent of my own socks, failing to notice she'd moved into a different pose. After a while, my muscles trembled with the effort of supporting my soft body in these unfamiliar positions, so I called it a day. It was then that I noticed it. Subscribers, 1. That was me. I was the only one watching. I felt an inexplicable flood of guilt when I closed the browser, like I was abandoning her. I checked back into her channel the next few afternoons. It was the strangest thing. She was always streaming. She was either unaware of my presence, or apathetic to it. Her ramblings, so freewheeling that they approached random word association, didn't seem to change whether I was there or not. She was often mid-sentence when I logged in. She was flirty in a way that made it clear she wasn't trying to be, charmingly raw in her tendency to fumble instructions. Curiosity overwhelmed me. I yearned to discover more about this fascinating creature. Her movements drew me in, like she was grasping at me through the screen. I marveled at the feeling of being her silent voyeur. I developed more comfort with the basic poses, though I still couldn't get my hands anywhere near my toes. Too soon, she notched up the level of difficulty. She eased herself into the splits. Each leg outstretched, her toes pointed at perfect right angles. I tried my best to replicate the pose, my groin protesting the pressure. Each day, she pushed a little farther. She curved her spine sharply behind her, a graceful arc. She lifted her back leg high into the air at an angle that seemed to wrench her hip out of place. I forced my body into the closest approximations of her geometry that my tendons would allow. My teeth gritted against the sharp warnings issued by my nerves. At night I dreamed that she was breaking my joints, cracking my limbs into the clean shapes that she maintained so effortlessly. One day she twisted her arms so far behind her that I felt sympathetic pain, and folded herself up so that her bent legs swooped around her shoulders, touching her toes behind her neck. She smiled at the camera, demurely, politely. "You want to see me bend into a pretzel, don't you?" she asked. That was the first time she addressed me. I would forget to eat. I'd wake up on the couch, having dozed off, and she would be murmuring about pomegranates while her forehead brushed her knees. Did she sleep? Did she eat? I saw no evidence of it. Every time I moved, my body ached with the memory of being stretched to its limit. I was spending 10, 12, 14 hours a day on her stream. She spoke to me frequently. "I know you've been watching me. I think you like watching me. How far do you want me to twist for you?" The fluid shifting of her body into vertices and curves and delicate polygons was hypnotizing. I was getting lost in the light of a flickering flame as it swirled into different patterns. I was working myself into something more pliable, molding myself into something like her image. It's difficult to pinpoint the moment she went too far. It was more like the creep of quicksand than any one single point. She would lie on her back and lift herself on the palms and soles of her feet, her torso thrusting at the ceiling like she was something from The Exorcist. She would inch her hands and feet closer together, folding her body backwards on itself until she was nearly split in half. And then she would skitter forward until the whites of her eyes flooded the screen, scaring me so much that I jumped. And she would laugh, as if she had made a joke. She would twist her head around like an owl, and thrust it between her thighs. Always blinking at the screen. Always smiling like we were sharing some inside secret, Like I was in on the sly conspiracy. She said, "You like this, don't you, Mr. Smith? Am I your foldable pocket toy?" Smith is a very common last name. There was a non-zero chance she just guessed correctly. But this freaked me out enough to slam the laptop shut, shattering the image of her toothy smile. I tried to resume normal life. But I had almost nothing to fill my time except television and social media and filling out applications for jobs I'd never want to work. A strange sensation tickled at me, like something was wrong, like I was forgetting something. And powerful waves of guilt, the same guilt I'd felt when I closed her stream the first day I'd found her. I tried not to. I really tried to stay away. But the urge overwhelmed me, so I returned. For the first time, she wasn't on screen when I logged in. I peered closer at the scene, seeing the familiar yoga mat on the ground, the coffee table, the magazines. There was a soft noise coming from just off-screen, a muffled noise, irregular and halting. A human voice. I turned the volume all the way up, and I couldn't tell if it was laughter or crying. Feeling sick, I closed the stream. This brings us to yesterday. I had spent countless hours thinking about her, wondering what she was doing, whether she was still telling stories to her invisible visitor. I logged in, her eyes filled the webcam's field of vision, so suddenly that I scrambled backwards. And that sound, echoing around the walls of her apartment and mine, and it was now clear that it was a sound of misery. Her moan was wordless, and as her face backed away, I saw why. Her bare foot was stuffed halfway in her mouth, her jaw nearly unhinged to accommodate it, the ball wedged between her teeth. Tears were streaming down her face, pooling around the corners of her stretched lips. Her arms were folded behind her head and her other leg was tucked under the first. She was struggling, and I realized that she was stuck. She was trapped in that position, a twisted ball of limbs and strained joints, unable to speak. I stared slack-jawed at the screen, and her eyes met mine, seeming to blink in recognition. The force of her sobs crescendoed. In relief? I wasn't sure. I had no idea what to do. I didn't know her name or where she lived. I didn't even know for sure that she was in the same country. I sat, frozen, for long moments, watching the twitching of her limbs as she tried to wrench herself out of the cage her body made. Then it struck me, I could type. "Can you type your address?" The message pinged its arrival at her computer. Our first real communication. She shook her head almost imperceptibly, with a slight range of motion her position allowed. I tried again. "Can you type with your nose?" Her eyes flickered across the page as she read my words. With great effort she rocked herself over, landing face first on the keyboard. "Sivyo Shuso," she typed. My heart pounding, I said, "Try again." I watched as she managed to prop herself precariously on one shoulder. Her body was convulsing with the force of her sobs. Eventually, she leaned forward, carefully, delicately, and pressed the tip of her nose to the keys. 3. Yes. That was it. "That's great. Give me another number." We traded for long, suspenseful minutes, her giving me one number or letter at a time, me writing them down and encouraging her as best I could. "You're doing great. I'm here with you. Help is on the way." She had cobbled together a number and a street. It had taken us nearly an hour to get to this point. She had just finished typing app 12 when she stopped, trembling with the effort of keeping herself upright, and we met eyes again through the camera, hers shining with pain and fear. And then she collapsed. She rolled out of sight. Panicking, I sent her dozens of frantic messages. "What city? What state? Stay with me. I'm here. Where are you? I need more." It became clear that no more was coming. Her sobs stilled, her breath quieted. I searched the address and found every city in the country where the address she'd given me existed. I called every police station in every jurisdiction within range. It took a lot of explanation, but after hours of work there was nothing I could do but sit and wait nervously by the phone and stare at the empty apartment framed within my laptop screen. All I could do was type. "I'm here with you. You'll be safe. This will be over soon. You're not alone." The ringing of the phone nearly sent me out of my skin. It was 1 in the morning. "Did you find her?" I asked desperately, scanning the scene for any sign of activity. "Tell me she's all right." The voice on the other end of the line sighed, a deep sigh, of sadness or frustration I couldn't say. "We found her," he said, his words gentle but guarded. "Stuck in that position, as you described. She's not okay. She died of dehydration." What? No. That's not possible. I just spoke to her. "I don't know what you saw, son. I truly don't. but the girl we found has been dead for a month. I don't think I'll ever watch porn again after visiting shadowtube.com. The house always feels so empty when my wife is out of town. It's weird, almost eerie, to live in my own house yet feel so out of place. I'm so used to hearing the scuffle of my wife's footsteps or the clickety-clack of her keyboard that living here alone makes me feel like an intruder in my own home. Normally, my wife and I are ready for bed no later than 10 p.m. She's a lawyer, and I'm a truck driver, so we both wake up at the crack of dawn. Usually, we'll turn on Netflix for a few minutes and before the opening credits are even over, we're both sound asleep. Last month she was traveling on business, and I knew that she would be angry if I watched our favorite TV series without her. "John, if you finish Game of Thrones without me, I swear I'll kill you," she told me before heading out. Better to surf the internet before bed then, I decided. I was browsing a sports website when a seedy-looking ad popped up on my screen. "Horny girls in your area are looking for fun," it read. The pop-up featured an attractive brunette with breasts too large to be natural. She beckoned me hither with a seductive grin. Her hips were wide and curvy, and her tanned, supple skin looked so soft that I thought it must have been photoshopped. If my wife had been there, I never would have clicked on something like this, but I figured what she didn't know wouldn't hurt her. Boys will be boys, as they say. The link took me to a site called shadowtubes.com, where I was immediately inundated with a litany of pornographic videos. I guess everybody has their own thing, but some of them were downright revolting. "Jesus Christ," I said, skipping past some of the weirder ones. Different strokes for different folks, I guess. One of the videos finally caught my eye. The thumbnail featured a sexy-looking brunette that I recognized as the same girl from the pop-up ad. "Jessie Stone likes to bone," the video was titled. I clicked on it. The film was certainly not going to win any cinematic awards, that's for sure. Judging by the grainy quality, somebody had shot the entire thing from an old Motorola flip phone. It started off with a rear view of Jessie Stone walking to answer the doorbell. Her curvy body, silky and shapely, swayed alluringly with every step. When she opened the door, she was met with the face of a pizza delivery boy. "Darn. I'm all out of money," she said to him. "How can I ever repay you?" I know that nobody watches pornography for the plot, but this was pretty terrible even by a porno's standards. I skipped ahead a couple minutes. The next shot, Jessie Stone was topless and straddling the pizza delivery boy. That's more like it, I thought. Porn star Jessie had the perfect body. I loved my wife, but she didn't look anything like this. I felt a little guilty, but I kind of wished that she did. "You like that, baby?" Jessie Stone said to the pizza delivery boy. Judging by the sound he was making, the answer seemed to be yes. I was in the heat of the moment, ready to finish, when I heard something that caught me off guard. Jessie leaned a little farther forward, thrusting her chest out and running her hands seductively over her hips. With a flirtatious smile she said, "And you like that too, don't you, Johnny boy?" I was taken aback for a moment, and then I realized that the pizza boy's name was probably just John too. A coincidence, I thought. Jessie started to increase her pace now, bouncing up and down with animalistic fervor. She ran her fingers through her hair, making all kinds of carnal noises while her partner held on for dear life. Without warning, she snapped her gaze towards the screen, looking straight into the camera. "I bet your wife doesn't screw like this, does she, Johnny baby?" she said. Her voice had a low, sultry texture. That creeped me out enough to kill my mood, and I quickly clicked out of the video. She was the hottest woman I had ever seen, but even this was a little weird for my taste. I decided to browse through the other videos and find something different to watch. Before long I came across another one. "Outdoor Dirty Time," the title read. I clicked on it. The video was taken at night, which was annoying, but I didn't feel like finding another video, so I decided to stick this one out. It was shot outdoors and showed two guys following behind a scantily clad blonde woman. They were walking along a gravel path, and each of the men held a flashlight in their hands, which served as the only source of light in what was otherwise darkness. Before long, they stopped in front of what appeared to be a large rock. "Right here," the blonde grinned. The guys each took a pair of shovels and stuck them into the ground. Together, they started scooping up heaps of dirt and threw them over their shoulders. Before long, the men dug a hole several feet deep. The crater was so far down that they each had to jump inside in order to continue their excavation. Finally, one of them stuck his shovel back into the ground, and the dull thud of metal hitting wood rang out. "This is it," he said. Together the two guys jumped up on the edge of the pit and started yanking up a large object from inside. Whatever it was, I could tell that it was quite heavy. With their combined efforts, at last, they managed to pull the heavy mass off to the side. One of them, sweaty from all his labor, cracked a devilish grin and started to unzip his pants. The cameraman, meanwhile, zoomed in closer to get a better view. At first, I thought it was some kind of rock, or a chest, maybe. With such poor lighting, it was hard to say exactly what the object was. And then, somebody shined a flashlight to the ground. I realized with great horror that the dark mass was not a rock at all. It was a coffin. The people, I realized, were digging up a grave. I thought I was going to be sick. "I bet it's still warm," the blonde said off-screen. The camera panned around to capture her in full view. She had now removed her top and was smiling seductively at the lens. Somebody shined a light on her, and I saw that she was standing next to something. To my horror, I realized what it was. It was a tombstone. Jessica Stone, born 1991, died 2020, it read. Before the rest of the video could play, I chucked my laptop across the room with revulsion. The computer hit our bedroom wall with such force that the laptop completely snapped in half. Fragments of glass shattered onto the floor and pieces of plastic casing exploded all over the room. The screen flickered with one final spark before dying for good. Needless to say, I was no longer in the mood. I tried to forget about the incident, but the ordeal was extremely traumatic. My wife couldn't understand why I no longer wanted to sleep with her, and I felt bad, but I couldn't get the shady porn side out of my head. Every time we started to have an intimate moment together, the image of that wooden casket popped back into my brain. Yesterday, my wife confronted me with tears in her eyes. "Are you having an affair?" she asked me hysterically. "No," I told her, "I would never cheat on you." With a giant sob, she shoved her phone into my face. "Then what is this?" she cried. I took the phone out of her hands and saw that there was a video playing. The clip, I realized, was from Pornhub. At first, it was difficult to tell what exactly was happening, but then I started to understand that the video was of our bedroom. Facing away from the camera was a woman with brunette hair, her naked body on top of our bed, straddling the torso of a man. The camera zoomed in a little closer, and Jessica Stone turned her head around to flash a naughty grin. "You like that, baby?" she said. "Oh yeah, baby," the man said. The man's voice, I realized, was mine. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more daily videos, and join the Spooky Squad.